narcissistic and psychopathic traits in men, if I was a healthy female, I would find them attractive. And I think this is biological. I think it's genetic. Do you want the guy who you can predict everything he's going to do? He's super safe and he's super reliable. Or do you want to solve a few puzzles? Do you want to have a bit of intrigue in a few games? I need a woman who look like, that's it. For a woman, a really good-looking guy is cool, but is that going to relate to the survivability of my children? No, he's got to be a go-getter. Your body's screaming, give me the toughest, hardest warrior and put his babies in me now.
Hello and welcome back to Bombshells. I'm Fleur Elizabeth.
And I'm Amy Shepherd.
And today we are joined by public speaker, author and YouTuber Richard Grannon.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Good. Yeah, just travelled down today and took a little trip through lovely London to come and see you both, which was nice.
How often are you down here?
As little as possible.
As little as possible. But this is where the stuff is happening, isn't it? So I have to come down. It's at the moment. It's usually about twice a month. Come down and then scurry back to Liverpool as quickly as I can.
Yeah, or Spain.
Or Spain.
Wherever you go.
Or wherever I can go to. Yeah.
Where's the last holiday you had?
I was in Portugal, and before that I was in Ibiza. Don't hate me.
I'm just wildly jealous.
Have you been to Ibiza?
No.
I went after I finished my A-levels.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Where did you go? There's many Ibizas. There's not just one.
Okay, well, we were staying San Antonio Bay.
God help you.
Yeah. But then on a night, we would go to the mega clubs.
Nice.
Like, High?
Yes, High.
Ushuaia.
Yeah.
There was one really good one.
So you were going from San Antonio down to Playa de Embosa for the big clubs, yeah.
And then one day we went to like a really different part where it was all white villas. I don't know what it was called. And we went to Nikki Beach.
Okay, nice.
And that was completely different. That was like our one day of relaxing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful island outside of the partying and the clubs and that. It's a really, really pretty place. Yeah.
Don't think I could actually handle it now. I got old very quickly. Old and boring. Yeah. So, when you're not travelling and partying, tell us about what you do.
What I try to do is produce content, books, courses, training material to help clients and clinicians overcome the effects of complex post-traumatic stress disorder through childhood trauma and or narcissistic, psychopathic and borderline personality disorder abuse.
Fascinating. That must be really tough.
It is at times. I've been at it now for about 12 years and I've actually just figured out a way to really start enjoying it. And I do. One of the things I realised this year is even though you're going into like the darkest parts of what humans are capable of, because we're really exploring evil every day and the effects of evil and what that does to people, a lot of good comes from it as well. And there's a lot of positives to the work. So I have to say this year is 2024, started in 2012. I'm actually really enjoying it this year.
Cool. What was the journey that led you to doing this?
Horrifying childhood trauma, misery, wretchedness. That I had a rough time as a kid. Buried it all, suppressed it like a man, and then I was doing self-defense training. I was working as a self-defense coach. Did that for about 10 years, and I was training the instructors in self-defense because I was teaching them like the psychology of doing self-defense. That was what I was known for. So because I was known for doing self-defense with psychology, occasionally the instructors, who would be security guys, police, military, they would come to me and they'd be like, oh, so you know a bit about psychology? Yeah. Can we have a chat about some problems I'm having with my kids or with my wife or with our family? And eventually I wanted to set up another channel that would appeal to men. They didn't want to do therapy. because they just don't like the idea of having to go to therapy. So at the time in 2012, the movie The 300 with the Spartans was still popular. So I branded it as the Spartan Life Coach. It's not therapy. It's for Spartan warriors, so on and so forth. But then as I developed the YouTube channel, I was getting more and more questions related to narcissistic abuse. And at the time in 2012, I was like, oh, this just must be the issue du jour. This will drift off in 2 years and we'll talk about something else.
And these were from men? These requests were from men mainly?
It was from men initially, and then it was from women. And then the strongest component of the following that I had became women. And I think the first video I ever did that went viral was called Being the Daughter of a Narcissistic Mother. And I was like, well, I'm not a daughter, but I'll try to answer this question. And it blew up. Like it just got very, very, very popular from there. And so it slowly developed. And then as I was doing my own therapy, which I got into because I was working with people, and I was like, I can see you're suppressing stuff. I can see there's things here you don't want to talk about, and I can see it's hurting you. And then I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm doing that. Maybe I should. So I would go to therapy and check stuff out. And then I realized, like, people were asking me about narcissistic abuse, and I had this high resonance for it and for CPTSD because I was dealing with these issues from my own experience.
Yeah. So in your relationships, are they the relationships that led you to get your own therapy?
Well, I needed therapy for things that had happened in my childhood and my early adolescence. And the things that had happened in my childhood and my early adolescence, stuff that had sort of broken psychological boundaries for me and left me with a little bit of complex post-traumatic stress, that caused me to find not comfort but to find balance in abusive relationships. I couldn't really cope with non-abusive relationships. I didn't stick around in them. But if they're abusive, I'd be like, ooh, this is cool. Let's stick with this.
Yeah. Is that because you're so used to...
It's what you know.
It's like with a narcissistic abusive relationship, there's more to kind of cling on to.
There is if you're damaged.
Yeah. There
is if you're suffering. So if there is the familiarity with what you're normalized to, and then there's this desire, I believe, to resolve unresolved issues from childhood. So you're trying to solve the puzzle of love and solve the puzzle of intimacy. Perhaps if you had problems with your parents or family members and you couldn't win their love, or they were treating you in a hateful way when you were very young and naive and all you needed was love and support. So then I believe we take that forward into adulthood and try and fix it in adulthood. Can I win love from a woman who's not capable of love or not interested in love? And I'll fight that battle, and I'll try and make it work, as they say.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Because it's dreadfully sad.
I think what I mean by...
But don't be sad. I'm very happy.
It's making me sad.
Something, a narcissistic abusive relationship, I guess, is it's less so you have more to cling on to, but it's a web that you can get stuck in easier. Yes,
it's a web you can get stuck in easier. When you say there's more, when you originally said there's more to cling on to, I've gone into coaching mode and I'm trying to decode that. I suppose there's a sense, maybe you have it because you said it spontaneously, that there's a puzzle to be solved. I can fix this. I can find a solution for this. So that would be the more of what you are. I want to fix it. I want to make things okay. This would be an indicator that you have serious codependency issues. Would you like to tell me about them?
No, thank you.
Save that for me. I'm just kidding.
But I try and give this might be unrelated. It might not be, but I try and give my friends advice who really like guys. Obviously I'm talking from this perspective because I talk to my girlfriends mainly about their relationship issues with men, but so I don't know what it's like the other way around, but
we just grunt at each other and lift weights.
It's so funny to talk to my girlfriends about this, because they'll say, oh, I've just started seeing this guy or talking to this guy and he's doing this and he's kind of told me that he's not interested. Or he's kind of telling me this. And I'm like, to be fair to him, he is telling you that. He's telling you that he's kind of not available. You need to listen to that and just let it go.
Yeah. Everyone thinks they can change them.
Well, I think, here's your first landmine. I'm aware this isn't anti-woke podcast, so I'll commit my first hate crime now. Men and women are different. Mm-hmm. Male and female psychology is different. Most of my clients are women, like 80%. So for the last 12 years, I've been walking as empathically as I can in their shoes through their world and trying to understand it. Obviously as a man, which is bewildering because my coordinates are different. But what I've learned after 12 years is there are vulnerabilities that men have and vulnerabilities that women have to narcissistic abuse that are different. What I've said, so you're talking about talking to your female friends, right? So you chat to your mates. When I speak to my female friends or female family members who are dating, I try to have the conversation with them as gently as I can. What do you find attractive? Because narcissistic and psychopathic traits in men, if I was a healthy female, I would find them attractive. And I think this is biological. I think it's genetic, which is why you must have Professor Ed Dutton on to explain these things. Our good friend, the Jolly Heretic. Why? Because the association, so a man who is unavailable and indifferent, how would you be able to distinguish between that and a man who is...
like high value, purposeful, has an intention, is living his own life, doesn't need you. So on the one, and then my female friends will say, "Oh, I want a man who needs me," and I'll say, "Okay, let's unpack that. Do you? Because I can give you a man tomorrow who really needs you, like he needs a mummy. How excited are you by that? Let's talk about these. Are it's not they're not delicate conversations to have, but we are human beings, we're animals. So what is sexually attractive to you?" So you can have in one emotional state and in one psychological state, I could be, so I'm being female, I really want a man who needs me and I'm fantasizing this perfect man, but he really, really needs me. This perfect man, this idealized man. But the man who's really going to need you is not going to be that man. Mm-hmm. So I do think there's a unique problem that women face in that the biologically, genetically, the perception of psychopathic traits. He is a go-getter. Psychopathy is goal-orientated. He breaks boundaries. He's going to break the rules.
You're always going to win games. That's set around games.
Yes, a lot of it is set around games. And so I am a man. I don't want to express your subjectively lived experience to you as a woman, because that would be another hate crime. Is that exciting? Is that interesting? Do you want the guy who you can predict everything he's going to do? He's super safe and he's super reliable. Or do you want to solve a few puzzles? Do you want to have a bit of intrigue in a few games? Maybe you do. Okay. Is that the worst thing on earth? No. So it's slightly embarrassing. I know that. But then what are men's vulnerabilities? They're really attracted to girls who are extrovertedly hypersexual. And they're really dominated by body parts. That's embarrassing. This is embarrassing. That's embarrassing. But it's a fact of life. And we just have to have a sense of humour, be kind to ourselves and to each other and look at that and go, "Oh, that's interesting." Would you like a guy, psychopathic, goal-orientated, indifferent, he's doing his thing? If I go into woman empathy mode, I'm like, that's kind of hot. He's narcissistic, super confident, kind of loves himself. So I'm a woman now and I look at a guy who loves himself and I'm like, "You cheeky bastard." That's kind of hot though.
Yeah.
You really think... I'm going to, now it's a game. I'm going to show you. I'm going to bring you down a peg or two. So now we're in competition. Now there's a bit of drama and a bit of heat and a bit of friction. If it's just some dude who's like, "Yeah, I love you. Everything's going to be fine. This is where I am." And I'm not, I try and have these conversations in some formats and people get really upset. But I just think these are the facts of life. So women are, in some respects, more vulnerable to narcissistic and psychopathic tendencies than men are in some respects.
Yeah.
Is there a biological reason that we are attracted to that? Like, obviously, men are attracted to body parts because it sort of symbolised fertility.
Yes.
So why do we want these kinds of men?
I'm gonna blag my way through my answer here because I'm not an evolutionary psychologist. But as I understand it, so men are essentially looking for as you just said, the body parts is the fertility. So we all want the highest survivability for our DNA. So that's our latent narcissism.
Yeah.
We wish to continue living off forever into the future through our children. So my best bet for the survivability, which also includes sexual attractiveness for my children, is going to come from a very physically sexually attractive woman. So by my sexual strategy, I'm far simpler than you. I need a woman who look like, that's it. For a woman, a really good-looking guy is cool, but is that going to relate to the survivability of my children? No, he's got to be a go-getter. Oh, the other thing about psychopathy that I was going to say and then I forgot. The psychopathy is goal-orientated, but they're rule breakers. Now, we shouldn't like rule breakers, but we do. Like, I'm a man with no sexual interest in men. I love rule breakers. I love interviewing narcissists and psychopaths. They're just more interesting people. Like, I'm sorry, but like they are. Now, you as a woman, if you see there's a narcissistic psychopathic man and you see me become activated by him, and you're like, this man is activated by that powerful man, his status goes up in your eyes. So your selection strategy for mating is more complicated. You can't just look at a man as a thing and go, yeah, he's 6'6", he's got an 8-pack and a pretty face. That's not enough. How does he operate in the world? I need to see him with other men. I need to see him with other women. And I need to see the strategies and the games that he plays. It's just hot.
And this stuff also changes throughout the menstrual cycle.
Yes.
Right? Which, like, to me, I'm just ashamed of women because why can't we just be a bit simpler? But if I remember correctly, when you're ovulating, you're looking for that big guy, like fighter, kind of
even with a more angular face. You're looking for a guy with the chin and the cheekbones. And then,
but not necessarily like going to commit to you. Then I don't know if it's when you're pregnant or in a like different phase.
Is it the luteal phase? It's the opposite side of the menstrual cycle, isn't it?
When you're looking for the guy that's going to like nurture you and be soft and raise your children gently.
Yep. And he's going to be chubbier, and he's going to have, literally, the studies show he's going to have a softer face with softer features and a little bit chubbier and less aggressive and less of a go-getter. Because at one part of the cycle, your body's screaming, give me the toughest, hardest warrior and put his babies in me now.
I think I'm at that stage right now.
From the beginning of this podcast. Your face. Please zoom in on Fleur's face.
I've actually just made friends with a big group of Marines. I've been starting to go running with them.
I just got a follow request off one.
Probably, yeah. They're really nice. I just like being around them.
I was just saying that I wanted to live with Amy.
She's found a big group of Marines.
You stay in Bath at a safe distance with your big Marine men. Anyway.
At certain parts of the cycle, big groups of Marines are the only thing that will do. Why have one angular-faced, aggressive man when you can have a troop? Anyway, 2024.
Yeah. I'm going to go bright red and stuff. But
I don't know why you're going bright red. I'm just embarrassed myself.
Anyway, second-hand shame. Anyway.
I'm sweating.
Not only do women have these attractions at different times, but this can result in women going off and procreating with the chads.
Yeah.
And then coming back to the man they're married to, who is raising a child that's not his.
It has happened, It's been known to happen, for sure. And I think, you know, I'm so glad there's people like you who are sane, who are doing gently an anti-woke podcast, because for me, with a background in psychology and therapy, I have a passing interest in philosophy. I really believe in discussion and debate and talking, because we can heal people by talking. And these are the kinds of conversations that we must be having, and you can't. You'll get pushback from this. Well, I started by saying men and women are different. That's a big problem.
Yeah, remember when Jordan Peterson said that?
Bloody hell. The outrage.
Kathleen Newman.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is...
Yeah, so women should be slaves. So what you're saying is, and then a whole bunch of... And I've just released some videos recently which tries to address that. So when someone sees Jordan Peterson, a white professor from Harvard speaking confidently, or they see me, a white middle-aged dude, speaking confidently about what women want, it can trigger what we call an emotional flashback. And then they're looking at the screen on YouTube and they're like, that's just like my father, or just like that guy who said this to me. And then they start projecting forward like, no, you want to enslave women. And I'm saying, no, I have women in my family. I have a sister, I have a mother, I have female friends. I'm a human person. Like, you're male, you're female, you're this race, you're that race. I'm into humans. We're not doing very well at the moment. And I think these kinds of conversations where you can actually be honest, they affect the sustainability of relationships. Because I need to understand the person that you are, but the thing that you are. You need to understand the person I am as a woman, but the thing I am. And that doesn't mean you're just going to fall prey to every single biological instinct you have. We're not animals, but it should be on the table. And we should have a sense of humour and some empathy and be like, this is kind of what you're experiencing. I'm still here. I'm not going to abandon you because you feel this way at a certain time of the month. Who cares if right now your major fixation is a group of Marines? It doesn't have to be the end of the world. But if you suppress it, if you say we can't talk about that, that's not on the table. Again, it's the psychology background. My psychology that I'm most interested in is psychoanalytic theory, which is Freud, Jung, and Adler. The things you suppress, they're going to come back. What we're seeing with the woke movement, I believe, is a collective suppression of a lot of drives that a certain group of people have decided we just can't have that. Just can't have that conversation. We can't talk about these things. Why not? It's not the end of the world.
Sorry, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, I feel like the biological instinct to have children has been suppressed so much that we've now got women freezing their eggs and being told career comes first and ending up pretty miserable about it. We've talked about that like on most of our episodes.
It's very sad.
It is.
It's very, very sad.
I think that you can't really have true happiness and find it in your life and create it for yourself if you can't be truly honest with the worst bits of you. And be so honest with yourself about your greed, your pride, all of the really nasty drivers that drive human behaviour. I think you've got to be really in touch with the kind of animalistic side of you. Be super honest, and because I think I'm just drawn to
so hard to
more sort of right wing side of things, because people just tend to be more honest and brutal and not hypocrites about stuff. They don't try to pretend that we don't have.
Now, so if we're touching on politics, we have to say at different points in history, that wasn't the case. I mean, if we went and lived in 1950s conservative Christian America and we spoke to the right wing, they would be suppressive. So my thing on the right wing, left wing thing is whoever's suppressing the debate, they're my enemy.
Yeah.
I don't,
definitely.
I don't, if you're, because at that time, it would have been more of the democratic side of the aisle. It would be like, hang on a second, there are some facts of life that we need to discuss here. Some people are gay. They really, really are, because this is born through the literature, through the science. We know that there's a genetic component to that. It's not the total story, but it's a heavily genetic component. And they just didn't want to have that conversation. They were dead against it.
Right. So this actually ties in quite well with something I've been thinking about recently, which is narcissism and religion. And the way that I heard you talk a couple of weeks ago about narcissists going to get therapy and using it as another kind of elite narcissistic game to win, in the most kind of competitive way, and picking up that narcissistic or picking up that therapy speak to weaponize it against other people, and so they can slide under the radar and master their own narcissism. Kind of character.
But
I
scaring
think
me.
It's a real thing.
I have known a certain person that does do this, who we know.
We're going to therapy just to get the weapons from the therapist to hurl at you the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And but
and some people use religion as well.
Yeah, and it's like in the way that they use the therapist to kind of trick and to win and to get in to play the game with. I think certain religious people use God in the same way, and they use religion, and that's the therapy, and God is like the therapist, and that's their kind of elite game that they play.
It's interesting. It's a really interesting point. So I think maybe we could say, conjecture, that sociologically speaking, therapy is the religion of the day. So nothing's changed. If they were using the religion in the 60s and they're using therapy now, they're using the dominant ideology of the day. And the dominant ideology of the day is therapy, is psychotherapy, because culture's become more and more psychologized. And people like me, we worsen this. We popularize terms like gaslighting, narcissist, you're gaslighting me. And people are using it to mean lying. That's not what. Or narcissist is any guy doesn't text me back inside of the appropriate period. He's a narcissist. Block him. And you just like you're turning clinical terms and overusing them, misusing them so much that it's becoming a slur. You're now turning the word narcissist is a slur.
Like toaster.
It doesn't. It really is only functional as some kind of an insult. So I think you're right. I think there's an instinct to take whatever the dominant ideology of the day is and weaponize it, and it's only for power. So left and right sometimes can be a bit of a distraction. It's really a question of who's weaponizing material to shut down discussions and to suppress the truths of what human beings are. And there's a lot of suppression of truths of what human beings are in the modern woke radical leftist ideology. It's in many ways, I have claimed and still claim, it's almost anti-human. They're so keen on suppressing what human beings really are. It functions as a kind of a death cult.
Yeah, because they'll put themselves out there and publicise themselves in a way that they will just portray themselves in a way that ignores any kind of reality about the way they function. Yeah. And so I think we'll know somebody very left-wing, very liberal left-wing, and it's such a trait of theirs to say so openly and speak so openly about what we should be doing, our moral systems, and things we should be prioritising, the way we should be voting, the way we should all be living, especially the way they're living. But then we know when they're not talking about that stuff, the way, if you just watch them get on with their lives, it's completely different.
Yes. So you've got two things there. You've got a really strong desire to control not just the behaviour, but the thinking and feelings of other people. Like demanding, for example, that cis-het men like me find trans women attractive and that we should pursue them and date them. But I don't want to. I have my preferences. Well, that can be seen as a kind of, that's wrong think. I'm now engaged in wrong think. I've committed some sort of a crime somewhere. And the other element of it is the rampant hypocrisy. So if I'm very concerned with coercing your behaviour along a set of ideological coordinates that even I don't, can I swear? Fucking follow. That is highly indicative of narcissistic psychopathy, not just narcissism. It's something worse. It's what they call dark triad behaviour. It's really nasty. Yeah. I want you, and you to all believe in this thing because it suits me, and I essentially just want power. I'm not doing it. I'll pretend to do it whilst people are looking at me. I don't live like that. That's, by any other term, you can take the clinical terms away. You can say it's evil. That's just evil. It's unacceptable.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you a story that
I like your stories. Please do.
It reminds me about a very evil story of me in my childhood. Because Because obviously I want the whole world to know how I am.
Did you watch the Trump-Biden debate?
Some of it, yeah.
You know when Biden was speaking and it's like saying nonsense, like, and Trump's just looking at him like. I said it to Amy and I was like, "This isn't me for you on the podcast." It's like, on earth should you say that? No, I'm listening to your.
Yeah, sorry. So when I was like,
and if it's like a sad one, then I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's not sad. It's not sad.
Okay,
don't worry. So when I was younger, I had these. I was about 7 or 8, and I had this puppy, and then my grandparents had this rescue dog who was very aggressive and would be really mean and barky and bitey to the puppy.
Is this a sad story?
No, it's honestly fine. It's honestly fine. So I obviously every time the dog would go at my little puppy, we'd be like no, and give it a little slap on the nose or whatever, and then. Because obviously you're entitled to do that if a dog's being aggressive, give it a slap on the nose or something. But then that kind of thing of you feel that power is you're entitled to hit the dog for doing a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember having my puppy. Obviously, gradually the dog would get nicer and nicer and would learn not to be so aggressive. And then when and after a while, it wasn't. I didn't have a reason, just not if I left the dogs to be, I didn't have a reason to tap the dog on the nose and feel so righteous that I'm teaching it to be nice. So I'd get my puppy and put it closer and closer and closer.
Bait the dog.
And bait the dog. So and if she growled, I'd be like, no. And I was like, that's fucking evil. That's the way I see left wingers be to everyone else.
You're reminding me of something Douglas Murray said, which is I think it was in the War in the West. He said some of these battles are actually won. They've already won. They won them years ago.
Yeah.
But like Don Quixote, they're tilting at windmills and they're pretending that the battle's. So you won the battle.
I won it.
Yeah. You already won.
I wanted to feel.
You still needed it.
In my evil child mind, I wanted to feel powerful, still powerful and righteous to go and hit an animal.
Yeah.
So
you baited the dog.
I basically created this situation where I would be entitled to hit the dog.
Yes.
So I would shove my puppy into its face and to make it growl so I could hit it. That's evil.
So there's two things I'd say to that. I think we should remember that there's actually, in the world now, there's people who've set up their whole lives and their whole careers around this, and they need the big dog to snarl at the puppy, to smack the dog in the face, and there's economic reward. Millionaires are made from this. It's the grievance hierarchy. It's this sense of like, well, who is oppressed, and then how do we attack the oppressor so I get my payoff? The second thing is they fake it sometimes. They just lie.
Yeah.
There's no puppy and there's no big dog. They just pretend that there is. So there's nothing even to bait there. And I think that's where every year that goes by, when I see that kind of interaction, I think this is the year that woke will die. And every year it still raises its head.
Yeah, no.
I'm thinking, I really thought in 2021, I was like, this is it. It's done. The bubble's burst. Nobody's going to buy into this stuff anymore. Wrong. It's still going.
I think it's going. I could be wrong. I feel like it's starting to struggle.
I think so. The fact that we're here is a really, really good sign of like nature correcting itself. There's your impulse to do this podcast and to have these conversations is part of a larger impulse for. I said at the beginning, you're sane, you're normal. Like you're probably politically, you're probably quite moderate. People will watch this and act like you are lunatics, extreme right-wing lunatics who want to enslave women and blah, 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 blah. They'll bring all of the story from somewhere else and you're just basically going, hey, can we chat about this? So quite moderate people, like you mentioned Jordan Peterson. I'm not big on politics, but I did a political test and it was on the quadrants. It was authoritarianism, liberalism, left-wing, right-wing. And I landed on the political quadrants exactly where Jordan Peterson did. Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And he is left-wing. He's left of centre. I'm left of centre, but what the Americans call
classic liberals.
Classic liberals or opportunity Democrats. So there is this gaping chasm between social liberals and classic liberals. We don't want equality of outcome. We, the classic liberals, probably you see it the same way, think equality of outcome is disgusting. Yep. It's evil, and it hurts the people who so-called benefit from it. But everyone in a civilized society must have equality of opportunity. Yep. And then you have meritocracies, and then you have a hierarchy, and then when your child needs surgery, she or he gets the best surgeon, which we all want. There's no representation when it's your child's life at stake or when it's the entire savings. It's something that's very, very high stakes. All of this garbage goes out the window. So we can argue and perhaps even present the case that the only reason we can have this kind of woke mind virus is because we're wealthy enough to. It's a luxury. It doesn't exist in Thailand. It doesn't exist in Malaysia. It doesn't exist in poorer countries. They can't afford it. It's part of...
Even within Britain, there's parts where it doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, you can't...
But you still suffer from it.
Yes, they will still suffer from the effects of higher class people and higher income people having the luxury beliefs, and they'll be the lower class and lower income people will be asked to carry the burden of that, which again it's a disgraceful hypocrisy. It's an outrage. These people are saying we're for the good of everybody, but I need my little, narcissistic ego wank, and if it costs other people, too bad. I need what I need.
You're also interested in philosophy, and you know a lot about it.
Yeah, okay.
You know more than me.
Catch me out here.
I studied it. I studied political thought, so political theory as my master's.
I'm about to get schooled. And then the YouTube clip will be honestly, like, Richard, YouTuber gets schooled on philosophy. No. Destroyed.
Quite the opposite way around. But you are like an expert on things you talk about. So I was interested, what philosophical text do you find the most beneficial that you ever read? What was the most enlightening for you, like that works as your pocket, or sort of handbook for life? If there is one.
I actually carried a handbook around in school. A little one. So the first philosophy that I studied as a kid was Zen Buddhism. So the go-to for me, where I go back to, is always, does your map of reality match external reality? If yes, you are sane. If no, then probably there's a degree of mental health issue that's creeping in. So Zen is make the mind match the world. Don't try to make the world match the mind. That's crazy. And so that's the foundation of things for me. It usually comes back to that at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm being aware that the map is not the territory. People live inside of, in Buddhism they would call it Maya. They live inside of illusion. They live in the past. They live in projections. They live in pain. Whatever traumatized me when I was 8, if a man speaks to me the way my father did, or the context makes me feel about something that happened with my mother, boom, I'm back in the past. So, yeah.
So from childhood trauma or PTSD, and then trauma in your adulthood, or PTSD formed in your adulthood, what's the difference between curing or dealing with those two traumas? Why is childhood so much more damaging, or has more of a deeper...
You did this. You be careful with your finger. Richard, why are you a little... The difference between childhood and adulthood, to be brutal, is neuroplasticity. Your brain is more plastic, and you have no boundaries. Plus, you have no credit card, you have no car. You can't just leave a situation. So you're very vulnerable, you're very open. Adults have a godlike power in your world, and everything that they say to you or do to you, it leaves a very heavy imprint on the soft clay of the human soul. But there's a physical component to that, which is your brain is just softer, much softer and more open.
Because as you said, narcissism has become a bit of a word that's thrown around lightly, like Nazi or
Yeah.
fascist if you vote Conservative.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Or if you're literally on the left, but just slightly right of where these
if you're on the
people
left
are.
and you think that there's men and women and something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't talk too much politics. Not this week, anyway. Election week. Anyway, so how would you define narcissistic abuse, and what are like signs and symptoms of a narcissist?
How to pick them up early.
If they're really hot, probably a narcissist. Just don't trust any hot people. The thing with narcissism that I can say that's useful that you won't get from the ICD-10 or from the DSM is it's predominantly a disorder of an attachment to fantasy and a grandiose fantasy version of themselves and of life. So if you're hearing somebody talk about themselves and their life in grandiose, dramatic, cinematic terms, they're probably attached to a delusion and a fiction of themselves, which is dangerous. The other thing to look out for in narcissism, where it's not just somebody who's a bit selfish or a bit arrogant or a bit vain, because who cares? Like, they're fine. If somebody's a bit of a dick, you can send them to therapy and they won't be as much of a dick. It's fine. But if it's a personality disorder, my claim is that represents an ongoing psychotic break from reality. NPD is no joke. It's really serious. True narcissistic personality disorder, which you may have been dealing with. I make that assumption without knowing too much about your story because of the lack of empathy. Obviously, he could see you were suffering and that he was driving you mad, but he didn't stop. He kept going. So that's narcissistic psychopathy. It's an indicator. I can't say, but it's an indicator of that. Plus sadism and Machiavellianism. Probably dealing with dark tetrad type. So it's about as bad as it gets. The narcissistic qualities that you want to watch out for is this grandiose, delusional, fictional version of the self that they're enormously attached to. So if it's challenged in any way, do they become inappropriately and disproportionately irritated, angry, and defensive? Because we as adults should all be able to be challenged to some degree. How do you know that that's true? Shouldn't lead to a 3-hour screaming session or a 3-day sulking session. Because it's not always screaming. It can be sulking. It could be stonewalling. It could be passive aggression. But you know it. You feel it. Like, just how is this making me feel is a good tip that I try to give people. What's your emotional literacy? If somebody's above board and they're being honest with you and it's an adult-to-adult communication, even if the feedback they're giving you is negative, I can give you negative feedback without discrediting who you are in the core of your being and be like, you're just a bad person. Why? I could say, well, I can have a sense of humor. I can come with humility. I can come with humanity and say, this isn't ideal. It's not the end of the world, but probably we should try doing it a different way. You feel it. It's in the body. It's in your heart. You're like, okay, that makes sense to me. I don't have to, on the slightest thing that you did, go for your guts, go for your spine. But I've been in narcissistic abusive relationships. That's what it's like. You disappointed me once on one issue. I accidentally said to a girlfriend of mine I was living with, I offered her mustard once on a hot dog. And she couldn't believe that I didn't know that she hated mustard. And she was so furious. She came for my soul. She was just like, you just fundamentally don't care about people. You're so self-centered. You've never listened to me. And I'm like, we've never discussed condiments. I'm sorry. Like, we've never. Goodness. Yeah, mustard. This happened. You mentioned the story of being on holiday. I was stuck in Egypt with her. I didn't even want to go to Egypt. And I was like, I was then subjected
Hot dogs in Egypt?
Huh?
Hot dogs in Egypt?
Yes. Not very haram. I was super haram, in fact.
Super haram. Well, you know what? They're made of all sorts
chicken dogs. Yeah, so it was a chicken dog. Yeah, mustard. Maybe she got really upset, but the consequence of me getting of offering her a condiment that was the wrong one was I was just a piece of shit. You're just a selfish guy who doesn't care about you. Don't love your family. You don't love your friends. You don't love me. You don't know what love is. You mustard eating fuck. I don't like mustard, by the way, but anyway.
Me either.
No.
I do.
Right, I've got 2 questions. What were they? One was it's a disorder. Are they suffering? And the second one is, Is it a narcissistic trait to refuse to apologise?
So it's a disorder. Are they suffering? This is an ongoing polemic within psychiatry. The guy, I forget his name right now, when Trump was being elected in 2016, a bunch of psychiatrists came out and said, as they shouldn't have done, as is not allowed to do, we really, really don't think this guy is qualified for the role. And they wrote a letter and they were like, we want this guy personality tested. That was for Trump. They wanted him to have narcissistic personality disorder tests. The guy who was the head of the DSM in 2012 for the section on cluster B personality disorders, which includes narcissism, said he doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder because he is successful. And then it opened up this debate of, so what does maladaptive mean? If it only hurts you but doesn't hurt me, this is the head of the DSM on MPD said, if I only hurt you but it doesn't hurt me, can't be a personality disorder. And if I'm successful and my life works, can't be a personality disorder. Maladaptive only flows one way. And a lot of people fundamentally disagreed with that. I would disagree with that. I would say if it's a if it only hurts you and doesn't hurt me, I don't have a personality disorder. I'm just evil. So yes, there must be suffering for it to qualify as a mental health issue and a personality disorder. They don't suffer anywhere near as much as their neighbour BPD. The borderline personality disorder is just a horrible life. It's an awful life. They're constantly suffering. NPD suffers when they're not getting their narcissistic supply, but a lot of time you'll see them happy because they're narcissistically elated if they are getting their supply. So if you're in contact, you would see a guy who's in contact with you and getting what he wants from you, probably most of the time, fairly cheerful 80% of the time, because he got you, because he's got you, because he's got you, because he's so. But what else can you see? You don't see him when you're not with him. So yeah, a lot of the time, it's that narcissistic supply that yields the elation. So they don't seem to be suffering. BPD suffers a lot. Psychopathy doesn't really feel much of anything at all.
And about apologising?
Oh, sorry. Just because somebody refuses to apologise, would I jump to NPD? No.
No, but would it be a trait? Or do you think narcissists can apologise?
Narcissists, we know 100% sure, can apologise. Okay. They can, but they don't mean it.
Right.
It's performative. It's a performative gesture. It's a manipulation. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
So sorry is a classic it's a classic narcissistic defense apology that even a non-narcissist could use. Mm-hmm. So we can all use narcissistic defenses. But yeah, refusal to actually be humble, vulnerable. The way that you know it's a narcissistic apology is they apologise and then do it again with no effort to change. That's a narcissistic apology.
Yeah. You've worked with people who've been in relationships or had maybe a family relationship with narcissists. But have you worked with narcissists?
I've worked with narcissists to produce material on recovery from narcissistic abuse. I've worked with diagnosed narcissists and psychopaths. I've never tried.
And do they accept that diagnosis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we started in the beginning by saying, or maybe it was off camera, there will be people who are quite happy to say that they have narcissism. We know this is true. Anybody who doubts that can look up something called the Single Inventory Narcissism Score, SINS, which was developed in 2014 in America. And they found if they just walked up to people in the street and said, hey, how you doing? We're going to do a short questionnaire with you. These are the traits of narcissism. Is this you? Yes or no?
And they told them from the offset that they were traits of narcissism.
They said, this is narcissism. Does this sound like you? These are traits of narcissism. Yes or no? And then the people who said yes, and many people did just say, yeah, that kind of sounds like me. They then took them away under clinical conditions and gave them a much longer test, the proper test for narcissism. And the correlation was positive. It was actually very high. It's like 89%. So it's actually, it's not perfect, but it's a fast, easy way of testing for narcissism if the person receiving the question consents. If they know that it's going to lead to a divorce or something, they ain't going to consent. But if it's just, there was a dude on a university campus was just asking people, this is narcissism, does it sound like you? So yeah, they know it. They know it.
And we've already established men and women are different. I would imagine that there are similar numbers of male and female narcissists, but that women get away with it more because women are the oppressed, we're the victims of men who have power over us. Do you think that's true?
It was true. So even in the clinical literature up until 2016, 2017, we would say it's a largely male problem, but the view of narcissism has changed. We used to think of narcissism as being grandiose. Narcissism and psychopathy, the example I always give is like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho or Bruce Wayne. So the guy riding around in a sports car, he's a billionaire and he has loads of women. But actually the real problem, you can see a guy like that coming a mile away. But what if he's covert? What if he's sweet? What if he's doing charity work? What if you knew him through the church? What if he seems to be, or she seems to be kind? Covert, vulnerable narcissism, we know, is a much, much bigger problem. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, the stats have changed. They're not diagnosing as many women with borderline personality disorder, and they're just saying this is female narcissism. So now we're about 50-50. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, you're right. It's around the same, but it expresses in different ways. Whatever the power structure is, as a narcissist, male, female, black, white, narcissism doesn't care. How do I get my power? How do I get my supply? It doesn't matter. And I can tell you this anecdotally, when clients from all over the world, if it's Kenya, Okinawa, Malaysia, Liverpool, narcissists say the same stuff. They use the same strategies. It's like some sort of weird alien hive mind AI thing. They all go to the same school of abuse. They all do the same things and say the same things. So it's highly predictable and highly stable in that regard, which for me would mean it qualifies as a personality disorder.
And do they tend to have one, is victim the word? One target?
Yeah, target, victim, yeah.
Or do they tend to treat everyone they encounter or is in their life with a degree of narcissistic abuse?
It's strategic. So let's imagine I'm the narcissist. It's really going to come down to what can Richard get away with. So I can get away with doing it to my wife at home, but I can't get away in public. If I had more power, we know the stories, like actors and celebrities, people who rise up the ranks in the media, the more power they get, the more they just openly abuse everybody. But if they can't get away with it, and openly abusing your assistant is going to get you kicked off the show, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll save that for my boyfriend. I'll save that for my girlfriend or my kids when I get home. So it's all tactical. It's all strategic, which is how we know that even though the impulse to abuse is unconscious, there is a conscious intentionality to the abuse because it's planned. It is predictably strategic.
It's so complex.
So what conditions in this sort of society and dating culture at the moment, what conditions are setting us up to be socialised in narcissistic behaviour?
Pandora's box has just been opened. So I think I would assert, in my opinion, that the cultural milieu that we have now is anti-boundary and anti-impulse control and anti-shame. So we've internalized ideas that were correct in therapy, which, don't judge your client on moral basis, try and lead them away from shame. Shame is very, very rarely useful in therapy. It should be a safe space. You can say whatever you want, so on and so forth. And you go, well, that's wonderful. That works great in therapy. Let's try it in banking. Let's stick it in the military. And it's disastrous outside of that. So because we've got a culture that thinks that the removal of all boundaries is going to lead to some kind of a utopia, and the removal of all shame is going to lead to the perfect utopia, of course that's going to lead to rampant promiscuity. Leads to a very materialistic, non-spiritual view of the world. I'm born, I'm going to die, I may as well take as much pleasure as I can. Once I'm dead, I'm forgotten. And so there's very little sense of consequence. What's the point of having impulse control in a world where you're just some randomly spouted out animal robot that eats fox and dies? There's no greater narrative than that. So yeah, those are the coordinates that have led to a sort of a maybe propagation isn't right, but there's now no limitations on narcissism and psychopathy.
There's no code to follow.
None.
No.
I think,
Nobody knows what to do.
If I wasn't a Christian, I probably would be a very nasty person, because the reason that I try and live a good life is because I'm thinking of eternity in heaven.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Well, maybe some religions are more moral than others, in my opinion. But I was in Taiwan last year. 95% of people there follow a religion, but a very broad spectrum, including like ancient, like ancestor worship. And they're just all so nice, so kind, so cohesive. There's barely any crime. It's probably narcissists there, but you know.
Well, there's narcissists everywhere. I think what we can say is
it's that thing to follow.
Well, religion, we've always had it. It seems everywhere, across time, across history, across geography, in every context that human beings have existed, there is religion. Why? Well, we seem to thrive with a myth, with a narrative, with a story. What story are we living now? A story of oppression? A story that we white people are just, I don't know, the bastard grandchildren of slave traders who ruin the world? And it's ahistorical apart from anything else. It's just not history. That's not historically accurate. But what you're dealing with in the woke mind virus is ahistorical, is ascientific, it's anti-learning. I mean, and you've probably seen the things that say like, oh, maths is racist, being on time is racist, adherence to truth is a patriarchal idea. You're just submitting to the patriarchy. So there's this very, very strong effort to bring chaos and boundarylessness into the space to tear everything down. But it's not driven by empathy. It's driven by a desire for power and a sadistic need to punish the world.
Yeah.
It's a very narcissistic, psychopathic drive. All this talk about humanitarianism and empathy, it's absolute bullshit. It's total bullshit.
Totally with you.
And go back to my puppy analogy. She's shoving the thing in the dog's face.
Just so you can slap a dog on the nose.
Yeah, and that's how I know. You've got to be honest with how evil you are inside.
Well, I think that's where Jordan Peterson was very, very well known for the. He didn't want his speech to be coerced, and he didn't want to go to prison if he misgendered somebody. But in the years preceding that, like 2016, 2015, he was shown online on YouTube encouraging students to think of themselves as being prison guards in concentration camps or in gulags. And he was saying to them, you have this in you. No, not me. Yes, exactly. Not me. I'm perfect. I'm different. No, you're not. Stop it. You're not different. Now, we can either suppress the truth, which is you're a human being. You're capable of every evil that every human being is capable of. Or we can do what we said at the beginning, put it on the table, have a conversation about it, and be like, wow, that's crazy. I think we have a better chance of not doing the evil thing. By recognizing it. Just having a chat about it first.
I don't know what other religions have for this concept, but being a Christian, you repent to God, who is the ultimate judge. And so that makes you face your sins every single day, who you've sinned against, and I think that is so useful.
The good thing with Christianity that I like is the cycle with repentance. It starts with recognition of evil, then the humility to confess, and then to repent, and then to ask for forgiveness, and then the recognition that sin could come again, but you're going to try. It's not over. It's not you repented, you're fine. No, it's a battle. It's an ongoing battle. I remember seeing that. I was thinking about it a couple of years ago because I was raised Christian and I ignored it. I was like, no, I want something cool that's Japanese or something. It's terribly boring. I don't.
You can wear baggy pants.
Yeah, I want a hakama and I want cool symbols and it needs to be in a foreign language because I was into martial arts. That's how I got into it. And then I saw Christianity again and I was like, wow, this identification, for example, from Christian culture, 7 deadly sins. You asked about our culture and how it promotes narcissism and psychopathy. All marketing, all political spin doctoring, all advertising pushes all the 7 deadly sins. You can't market anything without pushing sloth, lust, greed, so on and so forth. And then there was that cycle where I was like, wow, that's actually really cool in sort of an ancient psychological, philosophical way to say, I have done wrong. What do I do? Just stay dirty and carry the burden of this sin? No, actually, what you can do is you can offer it up. You can confess and say that you did the thing. We will recognize it, and God or the community and or the community and or your tribe will say, no, you're forgiven for this. Mm-hmm. But you must have the discipline to keep fighting the darkness that is within you, instead of wandering around like some idiot saying, no, I'm whiter than white, I'm a saint.
Yeah, but I think the religious narcissist, the only difference with them when they do that and they repent is like the difference between, like you said, you offer up your sin, you're honest about it and ask for forgiveness, and that going back into the world, you're going to try not to do it again. Mm-hmm. I think religious narcissists do that, but knowing they're going to do it again or worse.
Or they just are more like existing to judge others and tell them how they're sinning.
Well, but what you've both said reflects back to the split that we mentioned earlier. There's the real self, which is a really shitty thing, and then there's the grandiose self. So they have this wonderful luxury of being able to sort of outsource it and push it away. This is the real me, but this is what so everything is performative for them. Everything. If I'm a narcissist and I'm looking at you, I'm not just looking at you. I'm looking at you and I'm trying to run a simulation in my mind of how I look to you right now. And then I have to run a simulation of how me and you talking to each other looks to everybody else. So I'm constantly creating these layers and layers of perception and managing them, which is why they dissociate so much. You'll be talking to them and they'll just, the eyes just glaze over. Yeah, so simulate consciousness whilst trying to figure out who's looking at me and how do I look.
So narcissism must be more common amongst famous people then, right?
100%. Trait narcissism,
and
yeah.
Surely social media has played a part because people are constantly putting out the grandiose version of themselves.
False
and
self.
Completely. I mean, you do get the odd person more like on Twitter who's vulnerable. But I'd say even, the whole thing about like me sharing my trauma on my Instagram story, not me, but
one
sharing their trauma on their Instagram story, even that is like kind of, oh, I'm such a good vulnerable person.
Well, you're doing it for likes. I mean, we've seen it. They're like, this is my vulnerable post, so you can see the real me. Fuck off! You're trying to get 1 million likes. Stop it.
Oh, This is me with my roles, but actually, I've just I've been working out for the last month, and I'm gonna lean over just to show that I'm just.
You're at your most vulnerable.
I'm so real, relatable, but I still look fucking incredible.
Yeah.
You're most vulnerable when you've got diarrhea and no one's posting that.
That's right. So the Fleur measure of vulnerability is, where's your diarrhea posts?
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't seen that.
My dad, if I used to like think someone was great, like say Beyonce, who I don't think she's that great, but Queen Bee, my dad used to say everyone's shit stinks, and I kind of adapted that in my mind to be like, everyone gets diarrhea. Yeah. You might think they're a kind of amazing person, but even.
No, you're right. There is a suspicious lack of diarrhea on Instagram. And
suspicious is the right word.
But there's plenty of verbal diarrhea in this studio coming from me.
No, I think you could say like it's very performative, and it's incentivized. I know that you met Francis, you've met Constantine as well. So one of the things that he always says when I'm having a chat with him is, where's the incentives? So you're incentivized. If we incentivize people to fake it, of course they'll fake it. And social media can't cause narcissism, but it can be a great catalyst for it.
Yeah, an accelerator. And even, hey, let me share my my trauma and my vulnerability. And after you've listened to that, sign up to BetterHelp with my code and I'll get loads of money off your trauma and vulnerability.
So then we see consumer capitalism, which has infected everything. You like, where's the sales pitch? Because there's always a pitch. You're always being pitched to.
So, okay, with dating then, if you're going to go on a dating app, who does that? Does it?
Place of sin is sin.
Is it more
the
damaging?
Devil's Playground, child.
We should do more musical episodes.
Does it damage the way, if you're going to go on a dating app, is it more damaging in the way that you think about yourself, or more damaging the way you look to others? Which is more damaging? Because I think I have never been on a dating app because I'm worried about how it's going to change the way I think about myself, and the way I'll be starting to think about marketing myself as a consumable item. I don't want to think. I don't know. I don't get into that mindset.
You're wise not to. I don't know who it's worse for, is my honest answer, but you are humiliating yourself by commodifying yourself to a desirable object, a marketable object. You're right. So that's damaging, and also yes, to other people. It's not a place that generates much empathy. Just go like that, minging. And I don't like you. Too short, yeah. Too fat, yeah. Too bald, yeah.
Born male.
Yes. These are people, and they're just little flat things, reduced. They have to say something about themselves. Yeah. I like going to the gym. I like pizza.
Psychopath training.
I like going on walks on Sundays.
Yeah. Do you really? How wonderful.
I like music.
Yeah.
It's. I think like. On that question, my brain always goes to, okay, remember, there's a spectrum, the sacred and the profane. We're either being spiritual or we're being material. What are we doing today, Richard? Where do you want to be? Because there's a place on that spectrum where I feel pretty good. I'm in a state of humility. I've got a little bit of connection to nature, and I feel like I've got a purpose. Okay, that's good. When I lose that and I go towards the material and the profane, I notice like resentment creeps in. I'm entitled. I'm impatient. I'm moody. You're really moody. Whereas when I'm over here and I'm feeling grateful and humble and just like, yeah, man, we're all just atoms. Cool, man. Listen to the birds in the trees. I'm not moody. I'm just like floating around going, this is cool. Yeah. So you can be pulled along that spectrum, the sacred to the profane. And these, like, what pulled you there? Lust. What else pulls you there? Sloth. You're too lazy to actually go out and meet real people. Which, by the way, all the data, because there's a lady I work with called Sarah Davison. She knows much more about relationships, dating. She's the divorce coach. She told me that for a woman on Tinder to actually sit in a bar with a man, you have to swipe for 14 hours on Tinder. 14 for the average woman. For men, I don't know what it would be double or triple, or maybe quadruple. It's so much easier to just walk up to somebody in the supermarket and go, I like you, which is what I do. Really creepy.
Do you do that?
No. I'm an introvert. I'm
loitering and after.
Okay. Are you dating? Are you actively dating?
I am a man of the Lord, and I don't engage in sinfulness. I just pray and listen to the birds.
Yeah.
Do I date? Yeah, that's a really difficult philosophical question. When you asked me the philosophy question before, and I said Buddhism, you were expecting me to say something else, weren't you?
I thought you were going to say Nietzsche. I'm not going to lie.
I love Nietzsche, but I like Nietzsche because he's an arse, and a lot of Nietzsche's philosophy books, they're diss tracks against other philosophers, and he's just an arse. He's just a German arse the whole time, and he's constantly attacking people. That's what I really like about him. But he didn't date, and a lot of his resentment that he rages against us comes through in the pages, and sorry to be all Freudian, it looks like sexual frustration to me sometimes.
Yeah, he was an incel.
He was an incel. I agree.
A little bit. And I kind of think, look, if we got you in the weight room and we got that weird mustache off and we got you to bed and you would like dating, as you said, maybe after 6 months you'd write something that wasn't so miserable and acerbic and harsh. But yeah, he's a genius. Absolutely a genius.
Yeah. Some people actually lose the artistic inspiration when they're happy though.
They do. I mean, suffering absolutely has a correlation with artistic endeavour. The good thing that I went through and read Beyond Good and Evil again 6 months ago, just so I could flex and tell people I did that because it makes me sound dead clever. And he said, in one of the what are they called? Aphorisms. He said, you don't want to be a lonely philosopher, psychologist who's analysing life all the time. It's wretched and miserable. Go live. go live. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't, but he knew that what he was doing was messing him up.
Yeah.
See how I dodged that question about dating?
Yes, I know.
Bang,
Very
boom.
good.
Yes.
Slick.
I know.
And you got that in right at the end.
Yeah.
Have you got any projects or anything you're working on that you're excited about?
I'm basically grafting away on YouTube. I'm trying to put out material that is it's probably going to be a little bit more of an optimistic and uplifting year 2024 as far as my material goes.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find that if they
just put Richard Grannon into YouTube. I've colonized many channels on there, so yeah, Richard Grannon on YouTube, they'll definitely find me.
And if you could plug your pitch for not being sexually promiscuous, what would you say right now?
I'd say if you are going to be sexually promiscuous, you've slid along the spectrum from the sacred to the profane, and you're not treating yourself as a valuable entity. And do what you want with your life. It's everybody's life. They're all adults, but like just value yourself a little bit. Try and chill out. Listen to some birds. Get in touch with nature, and see if you still need to have sex with multiple strangers at the same time or not.
Yeah, that's for you, our 80% male audience.
Is it really 80% male audience?
I don't know. I think so.
Well, you are the bombshell.
After our
ladies.
first episode, it was 95%.
95% men. How do I get... I can't get men to watch me.
You said you've got women.
Mainly women. Like 80-90% women,
This
yeah.
is perfect because
We could cross over.
this is the kind of thing we wanted to create for basically Fleur and I as younger women.
Right.
That we would
Completely failed.
Yeah.
And it's the men who are like, yeah, get the woke, go and bash the woke. Yeah.
No, we love you and we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching our episode with Richard. It's been like a psychology lesson.
Yeah, it might be a free therapy session for me.
And I just feel like absolutely terrified of all these people who walk among us.
Yeah.
And like I'm literally diagnosing people I know with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go home and reevaluate.
All your relationships.
Yeah, every single one.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been fun, and I bet you can't wait to get out of this sauna.
It's rather hot in this studio.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And thanks for watching.